All right, so welcome back. We are at the end of the road, Unit 2, last AKS. Today we're going to be discussing AKS 25A, and we're talking about business organizations. Now, we will be discussing each one of these business organizations in detail with respect to a few different characteristics or categories, right? So, number of owners, liability, lifespan, as well as decision making, ease to start up, and finally, taxation. The very first business type that we are going to discuss is sole proprietorships. Now, your kicker here, the key word is sole, S-O-L-E. So sole means one, right? So we're talking about, in terms of the first category, number of owners, one owner or one family that owns a business, right? The second thing related to a sole proprietorship is liability. Now, you need to know what type of liability. There are two types. A sole proprietorship, they have what's known as unlimited liability. Unlimited liability. Think about what the word liability means. If you're liable for something, that means you're responsible for it, right? So unlimited liability, this is often categorized as a negative feature in respect to a sole proprietorship. So this means that if something goes wrong, you are responsible for everything, right? So you get to enjoy all of the profit if your company is profitable. However, if your company closes or goes out of business, you're responsible for paying your employees. You're responsible for paying the bank back their loan. You're responsible for paying the electricity bill, the gas bill, the water bill. Any payments or expenditures that you accrue, you are still responsible for. That is unlimited liability, right? Need to remember that. The next thing, lifespan. A sole proprietorship has a limited lifespan. Usually whenever the person or the family that owns the business, whenever they are deceased, that business tends to go downhill and eventually will go out of business, right? So remember that they have limited lifespan. The decision-making aspect of a sole proprietorship is quite easy in terms of decision making because it's only you. So the ease in making decisions is one of the pluses in terms of a sole proprietorship. So it's easy to make decisions because there's only one owner. You get to decide when the business opens. You get to set the hours. You get to decide whether or not to come to work on Saturday or Sunday. You get to decide when you're going to close your business because it's your business. But remember, you're responsible for everything. So you have to also take that into consideration. The next characteristic, ease to start and close the business. Sole proprietorships are the easiest form of business to start. And I'm going to discuss some examples of sole proprietorships in just 1 second. So remember that ease of starting and closing a sole proprietorship, very, very simple. And it can be something as simple as starting a lemonade stand. You are a sole proprietor. Very easy to open. You decide you don't want to do it anymore. Stop doing it. You can close your business, right? Now, taxation. You have single taxation. Write that down for your notes. A sole proprietorship has single taxation, meaning you only pay taxes one time to the government, right? So that is a sole proprietorship. All right, so the second business type that we're going to talk about today is partnerships. They are very, very similar to sole proprietorships, except for the major glaring difference is number of owners. Instead of one family or one person owning the business, now you're talking about two or more people that own the business, right? As far as liability is concerned, same as sole proprietorships, you have what is known as unlimited liability. All right, so as far as the lifespan of a partnership, same as a sole proprietorship, you have limited lifespan. So when the people die off, or if somebody passes as an owner, it makes it harder for the other owner, unless they take on somebody else to become co-owner, to carry out that business. So typically it ends up fizzling out. All right, so partnerships, when it comes to The ease of making decisions. It is a little bit harder now as opposed to sole proprietorships. Why, might you ask yourself? Because you have to factor in the other person that is co-owner with you or owners with you. It might be 5 of you that own a business. You can't do whatever it is you want to do with the business because you have to consult the other owners. So somebody might want to take all the profits, go ball out of control, and buy out the mall. Other person that is the owner or co-owner, they might say, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to pool our money together. We're going to pour back into the business and we're going to grow our business. So you have differences of opinions, which oftentimes this leads to a downfall of a partnership because once again, you have to consider everybody's input that's an owner. All right, so ease of opening and closing a partnership. Just like sole proprietorships, easy to open. Matter of fact, it might be a little easier because partners, you can pool your resources together in order to achieve one common objective. So it's not just you having to come up with the capital, the financial resources, or you might have to have somebody that knows how to operate a business, right? You might be the money person, whereas somebody else might have the fancy degree in terms of business administration, or they understand the makings and the operational procedures of how to run a business, right? So easier to open. Closing might be a little bit difficult because once again, it's not you by yourself. You have to consider everybody else who's an owner. So a lot of times if you wanted to get out of the ownership, they would have to you would have to work out something with them to where they can take on a new owner, or you would have to discuss it with your co-owners, right? So that's kind of a touch and go topic. So taxation, when it comes to a partnership, taxation, just like sole proprietorships, they have single taxation. They only get taxed one time by the government. All right, so the last type of business organization we're going to discuss is a corporation. Now, number of owners, thousands, several. There are many owners. Take Walmart, for instance, or Best Buy. There are several owners of corporations, and that's because the owners are shareholders and stockholders. Make sure you get that down in your notes. Shareholders or stockholders. All you have to do is purchase stock in a company like Walmart or Coca-Cola or Delta Airlines or Home Depot or Lowe's, Target, any of these big time corporations. You can become part owner by purchasing stock in these companies. All right, so corporations have what's known as limited liability. They are only responsible for whatever money that they invest in the company, or in that corporation rather. We're going to see an example of this in the moments to come. The lifespan of a corporation, get this down in your notes, different from the other two. Lifespan, they have unlimited life. Think about it. If somebody dies from Walmart, that's a higher up that owns several shares of stock in Walmart. Walmart, as bad as that is, people are gonna, boo-hoo and cry. However, Walmart's still going to be open the following day, right? So they have unlimited life. Whenever people that are owners pass on, there's millions of owners in Walmart, tens of millions. Walmart will continue to earn money, to grow and stay open, business as usual. Now, I just said that Walmart has several tens of millions of owners. Think about the decision-making process. Very difficult, right? When you have that many owners. Therefore, what they do is all of these millions and millions of owners come together and they vote based on shares. However many shares you own, that's the amount of votes that you have in terms of how they ration voting out. Now, what they do is they elect what's known as a board of directors or board of governors, right, to govern that particular corporation. And they determine they actually vote. Once the board is elected, they turn around and vote for the CEO, the chief executive officer, right? So this is usually the figurehead, and 9 times out of 10, maybe not 9 out of 10, about 7 out of 10 times, they're usually very vested in the corporation, and a lot of times they're the founder of that particular corporation, right? Take Arthur Blank from the Atlanta Falcons owner, which he owns or co-owns Home Depot, right? So similar fashion. All right, so the ease to open and close a corporation, very hard, right? Very hard, because corporations have to get approval from the government. So in order for you to become incorporated, you have to get government's approval. In order to merge with another company, you have to get government approval. There's different outside entities and forces that dictate what kind of corporation or what kind of business practices you can engage in, right? You have to follow laws, corporate taxes, etc. The government has a big time influence on how your corporation deals with the legality of situations, as well as other factors. And the last characteristic of a corporation is taxation. Write this down. This is different from the other two. Corporations have what's known as double taxation. That means they are taxed double. The actual corporation, take Best Buy for instance, if they gross $10 million in profit, they have to pay taxes on that to the government. Okay, so let's take this apple butter bakery, owned and operated by these three individuals, a mom and her two daughters. What type of business is this? You guessed it, it is a sole proprietorship. Remember, one person or one family operates a business. In this case, this is a bakery owned and operated by one family. Now, what type of liability do they have? You guessed it, unlimited liability, meaning they are responsible for everything, good and bad, right? What type of lifespan do they have? You also guessed this one. They have limited lifespan. Remember, whenever somebody dies off or something occurs, the likelihood of that business continuing diminishes, right? What about decision making? Decision making is the easiest. Remember, it's one family and it's family owned and operated. They have total control of hours, who they want to employ, what they do with the money, with the profit. So very, very, very easy when it comes to decision making. They don't have to consider anyone else outside of themselves. Now, what type of taxation do they have? You guessed it, they have single taxation, right? All right, so take this Gwinnett County Medical Clinic, owned and operated by these three doctors. These three doctors each specialize in a different sort of medical practice, right? So what type of business is this? This is a partnership. Now, once again, two or more individuals owned and operated by. The next characteristic, what is the decision-making process like? It's a little bit harder than a sole proprietorship. Why? Because you got to consider each owner, right? The next category is the ease to start up a partnership. In this case, pretty simple, right? And in a lot of ways, it's easier than a sole proprietorship because you have other people to help you get it started. You have somebody that might front the money. You have other people that might bring whatever they specialize to the table. In this situation, you have three doctors that each specialize in something different. So they add their own specialization to the business, making their business more appealing to people, right? The next category, what does taxation look like for partnerships? Single taxation, just like before, just like sole proprietorship. Now, what does the liability look like with a partnership? You guessed it, same as a sole proprietorship. A partnership has unlimited liability, meaning they are responsible for everything, both good and bad. What type of taxation does a partnership have? They have single taxation. Each one of these entities pays just one time to the government. All right, so let's take Best Buy as an example. What type of business is this? This is a corporation. Remember, who are the owners? Look right there. You see the stock market price? The stock market price is $112.42 per share. Meaning if you have $112.42, you can purchase one share of Best Buy. Technically, you'll be an owner, right? So if you only had one share of Best Buy, when it comes time to select the board of governors, how many votes do you have? One vote. Remember, it's one vote per share. So the person or people with the most shares have the most pull in the company. All right, so the categories that we have to worry about. Remember, what type of liability does a corporation have? Limited liability. So this means that if the cost is $112.42 per share, suppose I buy one share for $112.42. Best Buy goes out of business. What am I liable for? What am I responsible for? You guessed it, I only lose my $112.42. That's why they have limited liability for corporations. I'm not worried about employees getting paid. I'm not worried about the banks getting paid. I'm not worried about the electricity being paid. I'm not worried about anything except the money that I lost when I invested in that company. So, limited liability. Now, what type of lifespan does a corporation have? You guessed it, unlimited life. The people at the top, remember, there are millions of shareholders. The people at the top, if somebody passes, their assets just goes to their next of kin or whoever is heading their estate, right? So once more, corporations have unlimited life. They're always going to be in play, right? They very rarely go out of business. Yeah, you got this. All right, so I hope this video really helped you when it came to business organizations. Remember, sole proprietorships, partnerships, corporations, pretty simple stuff. Until next time, peace.